This is my second time speaking in a video that I make. This time it's to try a new type of content. You see, I've been stuck on 37 subscribers for a long while now, generally in the 30s for an even longer while, maybe about a year or so. I'm trying a new type of content. In this form of content I simply speak as the art time-lapse happens. That way you get the art, but you actually get audio over it, unlike normal. Last time I made a video with actual voice in it. Didn't do very well, probably because I wasn't very enthusiastic about anything. That won't be changing, however, but maybe it will over time. My plan is that if I keep on trying this type of content on a good schedule, I'll be able to actually do something. Get more subscribers. So that's the plan. Not if it will work, and I have to keep on speaking for about 90 minutes. So if I run out of things to say, then that's kind of a me problem. I could just, change the speed of the time lapse a bit. The video you're seeing currently is a time lapse of a colour wheel challenge. What I had to do was simply draw some characters on a colour wheel corresponding to the colour, if you've never heard of it. Bit popular in certain apps like Twitter and TikTok, by the seems of it. I think I did it a bit late. I've never actually done a project as large as this on digital art apps either. Usually things take about an hour or so, but this one actually took about, 20 hours? That's quite a while. That's a bit of history of myself, I guess. I've been doing art for a long while as well. So I started taking it a bit more seriously, maybe around the same time I started doing some digital art. Before that was of course all pencil and paper, which I'm not bad at, but I find digital art has better tools and allows me to better do things. With traditional art it's hard to really colour because you have to put all that colour all across the page and it takes a long time. Plus there's all little white gaps. With digital art you can just fill the whole thing in and it's much easier. Which is why I prefer it a bit, even though I'm not bad at either. I picked a lot of characters I was interested in, of course, though some of these I don't really care for too much, like Garfield, Supersonic, and some of these change up a bit as the art goes on. As you can tell, I'm not used to speaking in front of a camera. I've done a bit of speaking in front of people before, of course. I was about to do a speech for GCSE English. I'm not bad at English either. I actually finished my GCSEs recently, and I passed most of them. I got a grade 7 in English literature, for example, and a grade 6 in biology. For art, however, I got a grade 5, like most of my subjects. As for art, it wasn't bad, though I think art in school is generally more focused on realism than anything else, which I wouldn't say should be the main focus of art at all. Art is more about expression of your own self, which is something ironically that I'm struggling with right now, I guess. For my final project in art, I did a sort of space-themed one. Luckily I got the opportunity to be a bit more creative with that, as before that we were drawing, specific themes constantly. We did the ocean for about 2 years, if I remember correctly. I'm actually going to a new school this time, and it's going to be much better. Whole art course, less restrictions. You can do a bit more of what you want, though it's also going to be a lot more work. 3 A levels worth of it, to be exact. But the nice thing is I actually managed to get in, which is something. Though I should never have doubted myself, because it's one of the easiest grade boundaries I've ever seen. Grade boundaries? Wrong word, anyway. I stopped doing it on about the purple or blue section, because I was once again tired. Happens a lot, You do art, you give up because you do a tiny mistake, a little bit wrong, maybe you drop your pen. Happens to the best of us. How do people do this? How do people manage to just fill in the blank spaces with words? What do I do? No idea. If we just cut these bits out, maybe shorten time lapse a bit, and then it'll be fine. My last video of my voice in it, the one where I've accessed my old books of art, had a lot of awkward pauses in it that were very long and very awkward, probably because my face was in the video too. So otherwise you would have just seen me staring at the camera thinking what next to say, while turning the pages. Some of them I didn't even get any reactions in. What am I, Sniper Wolf? There's your pop culture reference in the views. I have friends who are much better at this whole talking into the camera thing than I am. For example, one of my friends has almost 200 subscribers compared to my amount. He's been doing content for a bit longer as well. He does mainly football content, and I have no idea how he does it, to be honest. This next section here with the green, I played around a bit with perspective. I thought a good idea would to be have Luigi running away from a creeper, the scared man that he is. So I started off with the creeper, like it's just cubes. Luigi is way harder though. I hardly ever draw humans. I've been practicing anatomy recently, but at the time, it's not really a common thing to me. So you'll see it's a bit weird, but he's a more toonish character, so it's fine really. He's lanky after all. Whatever happens to him just happens. I think the hardest one to draw in this... Actually, I don't know. I was initially going to draw some more humanoid characters in the next section, the blue one, but it didn't really go out well, so I just scrapped it entirely. Actually, it's the science section. Light blue, cyan, same thing really. My favourite one to draw though, I have no idea. Maybe it was Garfield or Grimm from Hollow Knight. With Grimm and Zero, I liked how I put Zero's circular form within Grimm's horns. So it had a sort of complementary look to the both of them. I should have done that more often, but I'm not great with just thinking of how to do composition. I started off YouTube about 4 years ago, but I only started uploading content about 3 years ago. I started initially with art content, with a mix in of in real life content and all that. Eventually I decided to just only do art, and I deleted all the other videos. And I lost about half of my subscriber count for that one action. Which is fair enough, people want to see what they want to see. If I stop making that for them, they're going to leave, and I don't really care too much. I kind of do make this content for myself, and for other people to see it. I don't care too much about the numbers, though that said, number go up is generally quite a satisfying sensation to have anyway. I do kind of want to see myself get to 50 subscribers, and maybe more, and more, and more. I've got 50 followers on my TikTok account where I post more than just art content, but the art content gets usually about 100 or so views, while the other stuff gets way more. My first art piece, I think, was probably would have been on Flipperclip, the animation app. All I know I had was a phone and my finger. That was my first digital art piece anyway. And it wasn't exactly very good, but in about 2 years I've upgraded to things that are much better. Franziska von Karma has actually turned out quite well somehow. Don't know how that happens. She's a good character. I'm partially absorbed into Ace Attorney, but not much. It's an interesting series, but not the sort of thing I get massively invested in. Navi, on the other hand, is from Zelda, which I am a bit of a fan of, because I have about 4 posters of Zelda in my room. Not the character, the series. And 3 books related to the series as well. The large ones in the Goddess Trilogy series that have everything to do with it. Though I got them around the peak of my interest in the series, it's lessened a bit now. My interests tend to do that. They kind of go in and out. Kind of like my speaking, in fact. Sometimes I speak and sometimes I'm completely dead silent in an awkward pause. I'll delete this bit, so for your sake, maybe I'll keep it 1 or 2 so this has context. We're about at the halfway point now, luckily. My previous school, the one where I had to do the more realistic art against my will, wasn't exactly a very good one. Catholic school, all boys, and I gotta say, those boys weren't exactly good. No idea if they're watching this, but I don't think they are. They never actually found my channel. Only about 2 of them did, and they're actually a bit more tolerable than most of them. I think it's safe to say I did not like it there at all. But at the end of the day, I just kind of eventually went in to leave, and that was all. Now that I have left, I can actually look forward to new things. I started that school in about, what was it? Around when I was 7 years old. I'm not able to do the maths there to find out the year exactly. From there, I kind of, went on as normal. Got seen as the weird kid by most people, but that's British schools for you. I never remember which is different. I cannot remember the difference between private or public schools, to be honest. But I think this one's a private school. And that's another thing to mention, I guess. As I said, I've been doing art for a very long time, probably most of my life, because I've always been interested in it. I've always been described as someone who's quite imaginative. But I remember once, I was walking down from the school to go home, because I had an optician's appointment, had my art folder in hand, going home because it was an art day. Suddenly, as I'm going across the zebra crossing, I see my sort of retired Year 6 teacher, who's now been given the position of just childminder, looking after the younger kids. He sees me and my art folder while on the zebra crossing helping the kids across and says, "Oh, you're still doing art? I'm surprised." I never liked the guy, but wow, that was quite a backhanded compliment. Why exactly are you surprised that I'm still doing art? Is there something you want to say about that? Well, I never really responded. I just kept him going, as usual. As for other things I've done in school, I did a lot of dodgeball as well. Well, when it appeared anyway. It's not like I had a choice really, but I liked it whenever it happened. I was good at it. I generally got quite far, generally being one of the last people, but I could never actually throw the ball at all anyway. I was only really good for dodging, and I dodged well. I've dodged a few point-blank shots before. Once I even baited someone into throwing a point-blank ball at me, to which I dodged that and then hit him with one of my own. That's probably one of my better achievements in it. Here we see me drawing Dark Samus. It took a while for me to get the correct proportions, and a lot of the images of Dark Samus were, to say the least, sexified, by which I mean feminine character, so they made the hips tiny, But that's not Dark Samus. I accidentally fell into that trap for a second by accident, but luckily I was able to get out of it. This was one of the more creative interactions where I took more creative liberties, making Dark Samus' arm cannon look a bit like the Portal gun from the Portal series. I got Portal 1 and 2 on Nintendo Switch a while back and it's not bad. There's not too much replayability, I feel. Even so, not a bad series at all. Now where's Portal 3? Hand it over. Give me it. I think in the earlier days of my school, I generally was getting into trouble a lot more, because I was a very impulsive person. Nowadays I'm not impulsive because I don't really do much anyway. But I would certainly say things I probably shouldn't have and do things I shouldn't have either, which got me into a large amount of trouble a lot of the time. Or there was a time where I just didn't know where the maths class was and I ended up way further away from where I needed to be, so I accidentally left the group that I was in. That was quite the experience. Because I was also my school before that, I've been to a couple before. That one I don't remember much of though, but I do know it wasn't amazing either. Weirdly, it was one of 2 religious schools I've been to out of the 2 I've even been to so far. My family is entirely atheist and I was Christian for a while, but only because I felt like that was the default, because that's pretty much what I've been told. Don't know why I spent so long being a Christian. But eventually I changed that and I just sort of stopped believing because I realised, oh, I don't have to believe at all. This next bit here in the purple section is where I gave up for a little while if I remember correctly. Cygnus, Envoy the Devourer, is not actually sort of... well, it's not from Terraria's main game, but it's a modded character from the Calamity mod. I think it's always good to explain these sorts of things because you never know, viewers might not know these things. As for the other character, I chose Giorno Giovanna from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which I've recently started watching, around in February. It's not bad at all. When I say not bad at all, I mean I quickly developed an obsession with it very quickly. From an outside perspective, I thought I'd probably never end up watching this. I have no reason to. And as soon as I started watching it, I was very quickly absorbed into it. It's just that good. Though most of the fan base is pretty annoying, I will say. After a quick sketch of him, I decided to try and now do him in the Dio pose, which was my intention from the beginning. Like father, like son, I guess. Thinking of new things to say again, aren't I? As for other shows I started watching recently, I started watching Vinland Saga. And also I finished it, though I think there's probably going to be another season eventually, considering apparently the manga doesn't end there. It's quite good, though I don't tend to watch more serious and realistic animes. I tend to stick to more unrealistic things. I generally have a more comedic focus. For example, my favourite JoJo's part is part 4, which definitely is a bit more comedic and light-hearted. Until around the end with the main villain. But even so, Vinland Saga is good, and I like the actual character arc of the main character. It's also one example of me going into something that another person I know likes, or at least has seen before, and has interacted with, and me suddenly getting a lot more knowledge and experience about it than them. For example, when I was much younger, I saw my sister playing Terraria, and I liked the look of it, so I decided to play it eventually. And I've played a very large amount of it for a long while, but my interest in it has lessened since. She doesn't really play many video games, but she maybe thought it was like Minecraft because she's played it a lot too. I did have a heavy Minecraft obsession when I was younger, as well as other things. As any functioning child would. I may have actually mentioned my Minecraft interest in my previous videos, maybe. Apart from that, I also had an interest in one particular type of animal, that being the turtle. To many of my classmates' enjoyment, to put it lightly. One thing you may notice through this recording is I speak very fast, but I'm also very bad at speaking fast. If some of my words are unintelligible, I probably put subtitles in anyway, and I would have anyway. It's not really something I can easily control either, much like many other things about my speech, for example my tone. I'm just a very fast speaker, and also quite monotone a lot of the time, as you can probably tell here as well. I used to be described as monotone, I've been described as speaking fast. I think I've probably been described as speaking a bit too loud before. Generally speaking is not my forte, I prefer speaking in text, really. But in a video like this, that's not really something you can do. However, somehow I've managed to speak long enough that we're almost at the end of these 19 minutes and 10 seconds of art. Which is quite impressive, I'd say, for someone who's never actually had to do this before, really. But I wanted to do this new form of content, so here I am. Maybe it's not a bad idea. But I had to wait until my parents or anyone else aren't home. Not because of anything they'll do or say, but because anything I'll think that they'll think. I don't like being questioned about things that I do. I tend to keep things more secretive than that. Here we are, finally approaching the end of the drawing. I've already uploaded this drawing to YouTube, of course. This is a more in-depth time-lapse of it instead of just a funny explosions meme. And there it is.
Okay, for some reason making the time-lapse any faster will make the voiceover last longer than the time-lapse, and there's nothing I can do about it, so here, take this very sped up last portion